Hello. I hope everybody's doing good. We're going to work on a drawing. But first I just want to go ahead and show you some of the other videos that I have. The purpose of me doing videos is for us that want to learn to draw, to participate, can do so. So I've had a video on a one-point perspective so that we can better understand how objects are affected by the positions of the viewer. And these boxes represent the objects in different levels where the mind can start studying and seeing the effects of the perspective points where we're standing. You have the bird's eye view, the horizon view, and the worm's eye view. And then I have another video on a two-point perspective. Okay, and the reason that I show all this here at the beginning is because, believe it or not, according to Google, there's 1,300,000,000 people that see videos every day, and there's 300 hours that are uploaded every minute, and there's 5 billion videos being watched every day. So you might see the first video like this one, you might never see it again, or we don't know where we're at. So at least you have an idea of the videos that I have done. I'm a retired art teacher, and I want to pass on my learning lessons that I've practiced. I was 30 years at the high school, 5 years at the elementary level, and my last 6.5 years at a 6th grade campus. And it's amazing what the children can learn. But drawing is a process. Some of us have the gift, but we can all develop it if we study. Here's using the one-point perspective with color schemes, just showing the steps. And again, all of these ideas can be used on any object. Here's a letter B with different color schemes, letter C, and I think that understanding how the letters and cartoon drawing, just to add interest to it, the letters will help us in understanding how objects can be affected. And again, using color schemes. And these are other videos that you can look for that I've done on letters. But today we're going to try to have you work with me. So what you're going to need is you're just going to need a regular ruler. I have a regular 12-inch ruler or with 30 centimeters, and I have a small ruler there that is 6 inches and 15 centimeters. You're going to need a pencil, regular pencil, and eraser. And I would like for you to get this here and work with me. Even though I will continue, you can go ahead and draw along with us once you get used to the materials. The nice thing about videos is that we can always pause it, return to it, forward it, and so on. So I would like for all of us that you can see if my 6th graders and high school students could do it, we can all do it. And if not, we can try. We can try. It's a lot of fun. So what I'm going to do is try to show first how to draw. We're going to use a cartoon character, but for purpose of learning. Now, the way I'm going to show you is using kind of a grid, G-R-I-D technique, so that those of us that are not very confident, that have never drawn, if we just go ahead and follow the steps that I'm going to show you, you will be able to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to draw the original size, which is this one here, the original size. I went ahead and divided it into geometrical shapes to make it easier. And that's another thing that I would like for all of us, that when we look at art objects, or when we look at objects, that we will see geometrical shapes and then we will look and see where geometrical shapes overlap, the angles of them, you know, either ellipses, ovals, triangles, rectangles, whatever it is, and whatever the subject is, it doesn't matter. Don't look at the subject as the subject itself, but as geometrical shapes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up first the actual size here. I have them in inches and centimeters. As you can see, we have fractions, and in centimeters we have unequal. So we're going to use the centimeters, which is going to be 6 centimeters from one side to the other. Okay, from one side to the other, and then that's horizontal, and then vertically is 7.5 centimeters. So don't worry about the 2 1/4 and the 9. Those are inches, but we're going to use centimeters. And we're going to double this so that I can show you how to draw larger if you're going to follow this. And then with time, I can guarantee you, I've seen it through all my 44 years of teaching, that with time you start getting used to it and you don't need those guidelines anymore. You start using your brain, in your brain you start using it as a measurement tool. Okay, so all we're gonna do first is we're gonna set up the diagram, and let's go ahead and we start. Remember, all you're gonna need is just a ruler, regular ruler, pencil, just for now. You know, if you get into it and you're gonna prove to yourself that you can do it, anyone can do it, and we might not be able to do it perfectly, but you can try, and then with time you start getting better and better and better, and you're not gonna need rulers to draw, and you're not gonna need diagrams to set up your drawing. It's all gonna be your brain. You're gonna see it. So right now, what I would like for you to do is to be careful, first of all, when you start using your ruler, that you start, if your ruler starts at the very edge of the ruler, not like this one here. This one starts inside the ruler, as you can see. Well, this other one that I have here, these two here, start at the beginning of the ruler. So I'm gonna go, for now, I would like for you to follow with me with the same measurements, so that when you get the experience and the knowledge and the get better at it, you can do it any way you want. So if I was gonna draw this picture into this area here, this picture here, into this size here, I would measure out the size. For example, if it's going to be 6 centimeters here and I want it larger, like I have it here, for example, here it is, okay, I'm going to double it. So we're going to do both. I'm going to work with you in doing them both at the same time. So let's go ahead and set up the measurements first. Let's go ahead and go with 5 centimeters from the edge of the paper. Okay, so we go 5 first. That's going to be the first little rectangle. We're going to draw it the size that is here, and then double the size. So we'll go ahead and draw this little box first. So we'll draw the line from the top to the bottom, lightly. Don't press on your pencil. I'm going to press on mine so you can see it on the screen. Then we're going to go 4 centimeters up from the bottom up. Go 4. And all the way across, somewhere across, because we're going to draw, remember, the original size and double the size. So I'm going to draw another line here. This is going to be the base. Okay. Then we're going to go 6 centimeters this way. So we'll go 6 centimeters. Again, make sure we're in the centimeter section. So I'm going to go so that I can set up this line. So we have this one now and this space here. And this here is this one here. So I'm going to go 6 and 6. And then I draw my line lightly. In your case, in my case over here on the side of the camera, a little darker so you can see it. And then from here to here, from the horizontal top to the bottom horizontal, is 7.5. So I'm going to line up my ruler with 7.5, It's going to be an uneven number, but we'll work at it. It's going to be a practice one anyway, because we're not going to have a very professional looking sketch, because it's just a setting up lesson. Then we're going to have a space in between so that we can work with the double the size. So I'm going to set up the centimeter here, just a space, negative space, nothing happening there. I draw my line. Now this line, this vertical line is twice the size of this. So if this is 7.5, in this case, 2 times 7.5 is 15. So I go ahead and line it up with 15 here at the bottom, so I can draw my top over here. And then I go over here somewhere on the other right side. Then I line up and make my dots, my line, horizontal line. So now this space here, okay, this space here is this here double the size if I wanted to draw it larger. So if I had a poster, well, I would go ahead and triple it and so on, depending on the size that you want. It's just, think of it like having a projector. You put your original and you set your projector and you pull it back, or you would pull the distance away from your surface, and your projection is going to be bigger. Well, this is the same thing here. So now if this is 6 here, 6 across like this, which is this here, we're going to go 12 over here. So I look for 12 and I go 12. And then I line up my two lines. So now this here is this rectangle here is the rectangle twice the size. Well, now what we're going to do is I'm going to divide it in 4. So half of 6 is 3. Half of 6 is 3. Draw my vertical line through the center. And again, this is a learning experience, okay, so that we can do it ourselves. And if I have 12 over here, half of 12 is 6, and 6, and that doesn't reach. So I draw this. Now I have the same thing here, twice the size. And in here, since this is 7.5, it's uneven, let's go with 3.5 for this one here, and it's going to be an estimation. If we want to get a little more technical, I would go 3.5 plus 2 millimeters. Okay? Well, I'll go the 2 millimeters. You just go 3.5 if you want to, or you can go 2 millimeters from 3.5 if you're familiar with your measurements. So it's 3.5 and 2 millimeters. I make my dot and I draw my line, my horizontal line. And I should have, in theory, 4 equal parts, quarter, 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 quarter. So 4 quarters make a whole. And since this one here is twice the size, it ended up being 15. So half of 15 is 7.5. So I go 7.5, 7.5. Draw my line. Now I have the same thing here over here. And I'm going to erase this line here so it doesn't confuse us and confuse me too. So I'll hold my paper nice and tight here. So I would suggest, if we're in the learning process, if we're just learning, is to take your subject matter, any subject matter, and break it down, make your own geometrical shapes. Look at your whole object and then see where you can imagine geometrical shapes. Okay? Now, I have noticed, and some of my students, for example, if we were going to draw this, they would start on the ears and the face and so on. But the problem was, and the problem that I faced myself when I was starting, is that I would end up missing space. I was drawing either too large or too small because my proportions weren't in proportion to the subject matter. So it's best to set up all these points, and what we're going to look for is this. I drew the ovals in red. Okay? So how do you do it when you have a real picture? Or when you have a picture that doesn't have the ovals like I'm showing you here? You can take a piece of plastic, tracing paper, and then cover it, and then tape it, and then create your own geometrical shapes. In this way, it doesn't matter. It does not matter what the subject is. What is going to matter is that you look at the geometrical shapes and place them in the right spots. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, we're going to start with the chest area of the dog. Okay? I'm going to be doing it once here and up here. And what I would like for you to do is you're going to take we're going to look at the drawing, and you follow with me. You place the parts where I place them in your diagram. Now remember this is 6 centimeters for this assignment and 7.5 centimeters. Okay? So this twice here is 12 centimeters. And this one here is 7.5 is 15 centimeters. Okay? So this is twice the size. So now what I'm going to look for, and remember, we're not looking for perfection right now. We're just looking for establishing the proportions in there so that we can get the object to look as best as possible. Once we sketch it in and we have it in there, then we can perfect it to what we need. Let's start with the chest area. I look at my oval here, my largest oval here, which is the chest area. And I see this here, remember, is the same size as this. So I'm going to look at this distance between here and here. If you want to, you can also do this until you start getting more confident. You're not going to need this anymore. And you look and see that it's a 0.5 centimeter. You see, 1 centimeter, 0.5 centimeter. So if you wanted to do that, you could do this and you would make a dot. Now, I estimate. I've been doing it so long now that I don't need to do that. And it so happened the intersection of the two ovals here, it's right in the center. So now I have this part here, which is this part here. Then I look at the distance between here and here. If this half is lower than half, it's about quarter, we could still break this down into more grids. So half of this, it's about here, and I estimate it's going to be here. So we can look and see if you want to measure it. You notice that it's almost, it's 8 centimeters, or 8 millimeters, and I look at mine, it's almost 8 millimeters. We're estimating. Pretty good. So now I know that this and this, they go here. Okay? And it's going to arch around and hit the center. Now these are sketch lines. We can always change them. Now I'm going to take this measurement and double it over here. If it was half here, then it means over here is going to be 1. If this one here was 8, over here is going to be 16. 8 and 8, 16. Okay? Then I try to sketch the same thing here. Again, we're just sketching the same thing. Then I notice that this little arch here intersects here, and here's about half of it. So it's a little above the half. So I go ahead and set that up, and I can sketch it in there. And then it comes almost out about just a little below the intersection of this. If I was to draw a line there, draw this here, and then it bounces off a little bit over this way. Again, these lines are not concrete. It doesn't mean that we can't change them. Now I look over here then, and I'm going to do the same thing, try to estimate and go up and sketch it in there. So that there is this here. Now I'm going to look at this one here, the hip area and the stomach area. I notice that intersects here. Okay, we're doing pretty good. It started here and it has some here. So then I'm going to do that also over here. And then if I look, if I was to break this in quarters again, another grid, it's almost, here's half, it's above a little bit over this way. We're doing this one here. And it comes out and drops. It drops. And it goes up. Again, we're just sketching it in, getting ideas. Let's look at the head. Notice this one here. If we draw a line here, that's another thing. If you can imagine lines like this, and have you ever noticed people using their pencil, artists, for they're measuring? So if I look at this line here, the line inside the oval, and if I line my pencil, it's straight. Okay, so it's straight, so I do it straight. And I look at the distance between here, it's almost equal. So if I do that oval here, and I notice the distance here, and I kind of set it up visually. If you want to measure it again, you can look and see, and it's about half. There you go, about half. Okay, so I sketch it in there. I sketch it in here. And I'm looking at the distance between here and here and here and here. Remember, over here is double. And you'll see that here we are looking a little bit of space. Remember, these are not concrete. I can always change them. So now we have the skull area. Now we're going to have the snout area here. And notice that it's almost touching over here. And it's a certain distance, almost in line with this. So I go ahead and check it. I draw that in there. Notice that it overlaps a little in there. So I'm going to draw this one over here. And then I notice the nose. Okay. Now we are going to draw this part here, this oval here. So now notice that if we have a line right through the center, this is the angle of the pencil. Sketch it in there. You'll see right through the center. Another trick is that once you get an angle, and if you don't move your wrist, that angle stays. But if you move your wrist, then you lost it. So if you take your angle of your pencil, here's the angle of that line, and take the pencil. Without moving your wrist, you may move your arm. Okay? So now you will have the same angle. That's right there. And I notice how far it goes in there. So it goes about this far. And notice how far it goes out this way. I'm going to do the same thing here. And sketch it in. So again, I'm not caring that it's a cartoon dog. What I'm caring is about the geometrical shapes. Now I'm going to kind of set the tail. The tail is about a little more than a centimeter down here. And I'm just going to draw like a string first. I'm going to try to get notice that it almost touches the side over here, right below the horizontal line. Then it curves a little bit to maybe a centimeter and a half. The same thing here. And then it touches here. And I'm just doing the same, I'm trying to do the same thing. Because I'm doubling it. And it comes in. Sketching it in. So now we're starting to get a form in there. Now notice the leg, the hind leg, the angle of it. I follow the angle of it here with my pencil, this part here. Imagine a line here. I can follow that, follow it here. I'll follow it now in the larger one. Okay. And now notice the paw is about maybe in line, almost a little off line from the back side. So now I go a little closer to the side. There's a spacing here. I draw my little oval here. Do the same thing here, twice the size. Okay. Okay, so now we got that part. And before I continue, You know, I've had several even family members or people ask me, well, why do you bug us about subscribing and likes and comments? Because YouTube keeps track of how many people subscribe, how many people like, and how many people make comments. So I would appreciate if you like what we're doing, and if you're learning a little bit, that you do this here, because it'll also promote, YouTube will promote the lesson, and more people will get to see it and probably learn from it, hopefully. So I would appreciate if you subscribe, like, or comment. And anyone in YouTube, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I just retired about 2.5 months as a teacher, and I thought I'd do this, and I'm learning a lot. So whatever you can take time to subscribe and like and comment, we would appreciate it. Not just me, but everyone that is doing this here. Okay, so now here on this quarter here, I notice the bottom paw is a little higher than this one here. So I'm gonna set it up just a little higher, and you notice that it goes just a little about on this side of the line. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna try to go a little bit higher, set it on this side over here. Notice that it's right in this area where it folds, so I'll just sketch it in there. Then I note that there it goes like a V, like a pointing V, then it goes out. Now remember, these are all just sketch lines. Everything can be changed and fixed. So if we're drawing a picture, a portrait, well, you can imagine how strict you have to be on placements. Now let's look at this one here, this oval here. It's about here, and it's lower, touching lower than this one here. And then that's what tells our brain, hey, this is closer to me. So I'm going to create my little oval here, and I'm going to do the same thing here. Notice just a little bit distance from there. So I'm going to create my little oval. I look and see just about halfway through here. I draw this part here, and I kind of give it a look and see where this little thing is, a little part of his arm, leg here. It's about a little above the halfway line. So halfway is about here, I would think, a little above, and then I sketch that in there. Again, geometrical shapes. We don't care that it's a dog, whatever it is. And I can promise you that if you just concentrate on the geometrical shapes, placing them in the right place, you're going to start getting an object, your subject matter, without even you trying. It's just like a puzzle. You gotta look for the pieces, the negative spaces for your puzzle. So now let's go ahead and see if we can start working a little bit on the head here. Notice that the ears touch, and they're just about halfway. So here's halfway, and I'm going to draw the first one here. So now here's this one over here, and then I notice the angle of the ear is kind of like a small V out. Okay, so I do the same thing here. And I can probably start connecting it now a little bit, just to start getting an idea. Remember, we can always adjust. And then I notice that this part of the neck is in line with the oval here, so I bring it down, connect, and notice that this part here is behind, and I had already done it over here. So I'm gonna kind of sketch it in there. You see the distance here, the distance here. I'm going to connect this. And I notice that this is about halfway, just a little bit about halfway. Just to make sure, let's see, that's centimeters. Okay, here we go. Halfway, yep, it's about two and a half up. Okay, 2.5 up. There you go. So this will be about here. Now we go ahead and draw the curves out, and angle a little bit more, curves out and it comes down. Okay, now let's go ahead and set the nose. The nose is about kind of a little balloon here. Balloon. Almost touches. Then we have halfway from the nose, and he has part of his mouth coming out this way. Remember, we can always make adjustments. Now notice that this arch here is inside, right below the first ear. Then it swings around up, and right below the ear is his eye. So we'll go ahead and just kind of draw some little eyes in there. We'll draw some little eyes in here. And we see a little eyebrow here. Now let's go ahead and start getting a little more detail on his nose. So his nose rounds, the bottom of his nose rounds off some like this. And then he has another one that comes out this side. Then he has a lip in, then it drops out and it goes right below his smile there. Then we have some space in here. And we have color. Notice the angle of the color. Remember using your pencil. And again, we're not being very perfect right now because we don't have time. But then once you set everything up, you can start getting more detail on it. Now you can start seeing the shape of it. Okay? So now let's go ahead and look at this one over here. And notice that the color arches out and the distance. And we go around. And it angles out like this. Then he has his little ring around it. And he has kind of a square object here. Okay. Now let's go ahead and start looking at his legs over here first. Let's do this one first. So now I bring this up a little. Tail goes around, has some thickness, goes up, arches in, turns around, comes out, hits the side, goes up, then he goes a little out this way, then it drops, then angles out, then we see the first toe, and go around, goes up, then goes around, and then goes and connects over here, and we see his leg over here, arches out, swings around, goes up. Remember, right now we're not being very perfect, we're just kind of getting the proportions, the space, the shaping of things, and then when we get ready we can get more detail, more specific, and then around and go underneath. We see the other leg coming out straight like this, drops in, comes around, comes out, then we see his little toes here. Okay, then the back one, do the same thing, go out to the front, around, down, in, and around. Here you go. Okay, so now let's kind of clean this up here a little bit here, and it goes out. And you can start seeing now, at least we're getting the shape of the dog. And then you are going to take your time to perfect it a little bit. So now let's look over here. Let's finish off this one now. What we did over here on the small one, this is twice the size. And I'm going to follow and look around. Comes down about halfway, then drops in just like we did this other one, and out. And big toe here. We'll do this other one here. Then it goes back around to his chest. Let's do the tail. Bring the tail out. Arch, intersect, out. Trying to copy as best as possible. And then connect. And this one comes out. Drops, arches up, comes around, down. Right below the arch here is his first big toe. Comes out straight like this. Then he goes up. Then he goes now, just about. And again, once you have what you think you have right, then you start coming back and fixing it. Here's the neck, arches in, swings out, goes around, comes out, comes down, comes back above the other, then arches out. Okay, then we'll go ahead and bring the chest down, come around. Bring this leg here. Let's go ahead and finish the toes on this one. Okay. And then we bring this up, around. Then we add the other toes. Okay. Then we come back. And again, this one might not look as perfect as we wanted to, but it's just at least a guide to help us to get started to draw. And the more you do it, the faster and the better you become. Okay. And it might not resemble the character right now, but again, we would take more time and try to fix it. Okay. But at least now you got an idea as to how to set up from the original size to a larger size. Okay. So if we could do it vertically, so here's the one that I had done previously. Okay. To make sure I had the measurements that I was going to show you. Notice that here I didn't set a space, the negative space, but now I have it here. So then you would erase all of this. You will erase all of these lines that you did, but I would usually prefer to have a border around it. All my artworks will have a border, at least of a centimeter. So if you want to frame it or whatever the case is, you can do so. So you establish the size of your picture. So if this picture was going to be on this paper here, like this, vertically, well, you get your center or wherever you're going to position him. But now you know the size. Or you can triple it or quadruple it or whatever you want. Okay, so then you would come back and you erase the lines that you don't need so that you can make more adjustments if you want to. Okay, so then again, this here is just a a study, a learning experience, okay? So that those of us that are interested in drawing can start working at it, and with time, you do not have to draw those center lines. But it takes practice and it takes patience. But we're in times where we think everything's microwaved, you know. So please be patient, take your time, set your measurements, and practice and practice. So please subscribe, like, comment, and don't forget the other pictures that I showed you, the other drawings that I showed you, so that you can look at those. And remember that it's just a process of trying. We can do it. We can do it. Eventually, with all practice that you get, you do not need to do too many of the grids. If you want to get really, really detailed, you would break this one more into smaller, different proportion boxes, squares, rectangles, so that you can get it more detailed. So there it is, a very quick sketch for those of us that are trying to learn to draw. And I hope that this gives you an idea as to how it works. And hopefully you will subscribe, you like, and comment. So I appreciate it very much. Thank you. And this is finished. Let me go ahead, and this is the lesson. And thank you for this cartoon. Bye-bye.